Hello, my name is Patrick Moon, and this is part of the Student Sports Advocacy Podcast, joined by.
My name is Link Miller, and we are also joined by Mr. Peters. Now, for anyone listening who might not know you yet, could you share a little bit about yourself and your role on campus for us?
Yeah, so I've been here at King since 1999 when the school opened, and I teach predominantly U.S. and AP U.S. history classes, though I've taught Gov, I've taught Econ, I've taught World History, I've taught AP European History, so I've kind of had my hand in all of it, and including the 1990s when I first started out, I coached for over 30 years.
So, correct me if I'm wrong, you teach, or you used to coach for cross country and track, right?
Yes.
So how would you say your experience coaching multiple sports shaped your overall coaching philosophy across those different sports?
I was in a unique situation in that though cross country and track are in two different seasons and technically they're two different sports. The fact that I was coaching distance runners in the spring of track, those kids would end up running cross country in the fall. And of course, we're training in the summer and training in the winter. So I was in a unique situation as a coach in that I was able to work with the same group of athletes all year long with only some short breaks in two different competitive arenas and for 4 years if they stuck it out from freshman to senior year. So that allowed me to create relationships with athletes, some of which I still have to this very day. I was at a wedding this weekend of a former athlete. So that was a unique part of my life.
I have to imagine that'd be pretty cool.
It was.
So, because you were a coach for arguably the best two sports on this campus,
Indeed.
we just wanted to quickly ask you.
We're not biased. It's just facts.
Obviously.
Yeah.
How would you say that facilities or access to equipment impacts athlete performance and the confidence that they have during their competitions?
Good question. One of the things about distance running is there isn't a great need for equipment outside of a good pair of shoes and comfortable running attire. That said, shoes do make a difference, as you know, having run. The right spikes can make a difference. The right training shoes can keep people from being injured. And the shoe companies nowadays are pouring billions of dollars into research and development of the next iteration of the best running shoe available. That can definitely help in preventing injuries. If you aren't injured, you can train. If you can train, you can race.
Yeah, I'd say that makes a big difference across all sports, and especially ones that actually use equipment, right?
Yeah.
So, what does a healthy coach to athlete relationship look like to you?
That's a good question. A healthy coach athlete relationship. It's definitely a two-way street. The athlete needs to be in a mental space and an emotional space where he or she wants to be coached, isn't coming in with an agenda, isn't coming in with a list of this is what I expect out of my coach. The athlete should be like a sponge. I'm not very good at this. I want to get better. You have some experience. Please help. So I would argue that those kinds of athletes are the most capable of really benefiting from coaching. On the other side, though, because it is a two-way street, the coach has to be fully involved. No part-time coach has ever been very successful. The coach has to be attentive to his or her athlete's needs. Obviously, the physical needs as an athlete, what does that take? But then certainly at the high school level, there's the whole emotional component as kids are growing up into adulthood. There's drama on campus and on teams. There's stresses from parents and friends and homework, et cetera. And all of that has to take a coach needs to take that into consideration in order to find that sweet spot where the athlete can receive what the coach can give. And when that connection is made, the sky is the limit as far as how much the athlete can actually accomplish in the sport.
So based off of that, would you say it would be correct to kind of compare the coach-athlete relationship to almost a sort of a student-teacher relationship in the same way?
Yes. definitely in many of those components that I articulated, but there is just a unique dynamic that goes on in athletics that doesn't happen in a classroom. Yes, at the core, a coach at the high school level is a teacher. And I don't mean I teach history, but when I was coaching, I was teaching life through the avenue of athletics or running. And that's just it's hard to explain in a short amount of time, but there's a very big difference between teaching in a classroom and teaching in an athletic environment. And again, going back to what I said earlier, in my unique situation where I'm working with those kids for 4 years, all year long, there's nothing in a classroom that can ever replicate that, because I see you guys as students for 55 minutes a day, 5 days a week, and we're gone after a year. So my situation was very different.
What would you say, after all your years of coaching, was the most rewarding part of being a coach and coaching all these students that you had for so many years?
Yeah, the relationships that you build with athletes. Like I said, just this weekend, I was at the wedding of a 26-year-old who used to run on my team, and that's kind of a common thing. So those relationships that come through the highs of victory and success that come, with coaching and being an athlete, and then also walking with people through the valley of despair, the valleys of injuries, and we wanted that race so bad, and then we didn't get it, and coaching, you're down there in the trenches with your athletes all along the way, and that creates bonds with people. So yeah, I look back on my career and grateful for the athletic accomplishments that came our way. Loved the championships. All of that competitive stuff was rewarding and fun, but at the end of the day, all of that's going to burn anyway. And the relationships are what endure, and that's really sweet.
So, I'm sorry for the abrupt change, but
No, it's
how
fine.
important would you say how important is the viability and promotion of sports on campus?
Rephrase your question. What do you
So,
mean?
okay, so I'll just take a part out. How important would you say it is to promote sports on campus? To get like freshmen or the upcoming eighth graders, right, interested in those sports.
Yeah, it's absolutely important. I think a lot of freshmen come in, if they haven't been in the club system or played ASO or some of the lower level youth programs, they might come into high school thinking they can't do it, or they are not aware of the opportunities that sports offer. So yeah, having a visible presence either in digital media or physical media, or just getting out and talking with young people about, hey, here's an opportunity. When King opened, we only had freshmen and sophomores, and I stood in the registration line on the first day of registration, on the first day of King High School's history back in August of 1999, and I handed a flyer to every kid that walked by on their way out of the student store with their gear in hand. I'm like, you should run cross country, because we didn't have anybody. We had to start from scratch, and we built a team by literally just saying this is available, and I continue to do that long into the tenure.
I wanted to add on to that thought because, as a cross country and track runner myself, I originally wasn't going to do these two sports when I was coming into high school because I had this idea of what these sports were, and I was so afraid of joining these sports. And so what I wanted to ask you is, what would you say is the biggest challenge that student athletes face from all the experience that you've worked with these student athletes?
You mean once they get into the actual sport?
Yes.
Well, in cross country and track, the demands were very high. We were practicing 2+ hours a day, 6 days a week, all year long, except for the month of June. And then on top of that, you have homework, and you have social life, and you have church life, and you got all these other things. And so in my little corner of the athletic world, the demands that the kids had to be good at running, which is, you can't be good at it if you're only going to do it a little bit at a time. You have to be all in. But we were drawing unique kids in that they wanted to be all in taking AP classes. They wanted to be all in with their piano lessons. They wanted to be all in a variety of aspects of their lives. And so for me as a coach to say, well, you signed up for this, we're all in this together, let's go, that was a big ask.
So on the more mental and physical health related area, so how would you say that area affects your teams? And as a coach, what did you feel your role was in trying to help them with that?
Are you talking about mental health as we define it broadly in our society, or just the mental aspects of being an athlete?
I'd say kind of a mix of both, because there's the issue of balancing athletics and then also academics, right? I know that's a big thing for a lot of people in sports, but then also maintaining your physical health in a sport can be a lot more difficult.
Yeah, well, I'll start maybe broadly and then get into the narrow. Broadly speaking, all of the data, all of the research right now is showing that the mental health crisis in America, especially for younger people, is largely due to social media addictions. And when you're out running a 5, 10, 15-mile workout, you're not on social media. The active nature of being an athlete is addictive in its own right. It's dopamine. That's the adrenaline rush that creates that, man, I feel like I'm accomplishing something here. There's no accomplishment in social media, but athletics there is. And maybe the accomplishment is, it's Tuesday, it's 90 degrees, coach just gave us 7 miles and I finished it. And that's a win, So the literal getting outdoors is an antidote to the mental health crisis that we're feeling and experiencing in the country today. I'll get more narrow now. The athletes that are on their footers on the starting line and they're nervous and they're scared, or it's the night before the big meet, the big race, and they're nervous. Well, athletics will really train a young person to be mentally tough. One of the things I loved about distance running is it was so pure. There's no 3-point shot at the buzzer to win it. There's no Hail Mary into the end zone. There's no trick shots. There's no trick plays. It's you and the distance and how well you trained. Period, end of story. And if somebody beats you, they beat you because they're better than you or because you caved to the pressures that came. And so I just loved how tough the sport of cross country and track made young people mentally. It wasn't universal. Some battled it all the way through, all 4 years of running. But there's just no way to survive a race if you're mentally weak. You have to be strong to bear down through the pain, through the suffering, through the fact that I can't shake this guy that's right on my shoulder and I want to beat him bad, but he's not dropping. Those kinds of things just create a mental muscle that's magnificently beautiful.
You've mentioned how resilient that some of these athletes have to become to really just push themselves to win these races, win these competitions. And because they push themselves so much, they often get injured or they hurt themselves mentally. Yeah. And so what we wanted to ask you was, what is something that you want a student athlete to know about the coach's approach in teaching? What is something that you would like a student athlete to know when it comes to the approach of a coach giving a difficult workout, a workout meant to push you to your limits?
Yeah, that's a great question. I constantly told athletes everything that we do, including our day off on Sunday, has a purpose behind it. It drove me nuts when kids thought, no, I'm just going to run more miles on Sunday because I don't think coach is giving us enough. And I'd be like, you're only going to get injured because I am giving you enough. And what we do on each individual workout is scientifically studied and proven to be effective at bringing about the improvement that athletes are desiring in the sport of distance running. So um, helping athletes to understand we're not just randomly going out and running. We are executing targeted, physiologically, and at times mental challenges, physiological challenges and mental challenges in order to be prepared for the big race. So that when they put their foot on the line in the biggest race, they could literally say, I have done 10 times harder than what I'm about ready to face over the next 15 to 18 minutes. Coaches put me through the ringer the last 4 months. This race is going to be easy as a result. By the way, that's my AP US History philosophy too. The AP exam is going to be easy.
So, what would you say you enjoyed most about working with the student athletes?
Just seeing their success. I love seeing kids that stumbled into the sport, meaning that was never their life's goal. They came out to get in shape for soccer, or they came out because their friend was on the team, or they came out because they're, like it was my case when I was in ninth grade. My dad said I had to do it. I didn't want to. Change my life. So because my life got changed by my dad forcing me as a ninth grader to run cross country, it was just seeing that happen over and over with other athletes is really cool.
I want to touch more upon that mental health aspect that you mentioned previously. We just wanted to ask you about something that happened pre-pandemic when you were still coaching around. What role did mental health really play into your program, and how did pre-pandemic and post-pandemic, what was that change?
Good question. Pre-pandemic, I think we talked not so much about a societal epidemic, but more of an individual. The kid is doubting himself or herself. The kid is struggling with confidence. That's a mental health, loosely defined term, in the sense that mentally or physically, you're prepared. You can do this. Mentally, I can't do this, coach. And then trying to talk kids through, let's remind ourselves of our workouts. Let's remind ourselves of our fitness. Let's remind ourselves of our prior experience. Now, with those in mind, step out on the line and just do your best. And that was the invitation. Post-pandemic, it's hard to say how it's changed dramatically, mainly because I'm not in it any longer. But I would imagine that for most kids, it's still the same challenge. We are finite human beings. We're not God. We don't have infinite mental or physical or emotional powers. We go to the starting lines of our races and our lives inadequate for the task. So we do our best, and we prepare to do our best. And that's all any coach could ever ask of a kid. Just prepare, do due diligence, and then get to the starting line and just give it your best shot and enjoy the outcome. I try to preach that a lot. It's like, this should be fun. Running is fun. Being fit is really fun. And running your best race, regardless of what the clock or the finish place says, huge rewards in that. Just incredibly satisfying of knowing, man, I had 3.1 miles and I gave it everything I had and I came in 20th or 50th or 1st. Doesn't matter. I gave everything I had. It's mentally incredibly rewarding.
So, would you say, other than school and sports, right? Would you say there are any other ways that you help your student athletes, right? Or even between balancing those two, like what else do you do as a coach to assist them?
Well, to whatever degree it's possible, you try to, bridge the gap between athletics and life. Back in 2010, first thing that came into my mind, a former athlete, she had just graduated and she was in her first year of college, was in a horrific car accident, almost lost her life, was hospitalized. And I'm not patting myself on the back, but I just felt, this is to answer your question, I flew to Reno. The accident was up in Northern California, and they took her to Reno. I flew to Reno to go see her and her parents at the hospital because she had been a dear part of our team. And that was just like I couldn't. I got to go, and I was there for 2 hours and I flew back home. But things like that, you're doing life with people, and ultimately, how fast somebody runs in high school is completely irrelevant to the rest of life. This wedding I was at Saturday, we didn't talk about her times. It was irrelevant. We talked about a couple memories of being a runner and being disciplined, but when you're 26, nobody cares how fast you ran when you were 16. And I did well when I remembered that, and remembered that this is a small part of a big life, and to pour myself out for these kids and their lives, and what really matters in the long run, pun intended, is not how fast you were in high school. So yeah, I don't know if that answers your question, but
I don't know either, but it's a pretty good answer, I'd say. So going back to what you said about it being rewarding to kind of go through the process and see your accomplishments, right? Would you say it's rewarding for you to see the improvements and accomplishments of your runners?
Oh, absolutely. I said at every banquet, every awards banquet has MVP, and then that's the big one. I always argued the most important award at our banquet is the most improved, because that's a kid that went from point A, wherever that was, to point B, and that's way down the road from where point A was, and that is what it's all about. Not taking anything away from MVPs, obviously, but improvement is that. I'm 60 years old. I know I don't look it, but I'm 60 years old. I'm still trying to improve. So improvement is a lifelong endeavor. So just watching and charting that improvement that kids made. And that's one thing I loved about our sport. You could measure it objectively. A kid in a ball sport, yeah, they have statistics, but they're kind of dependent on the attaboys, or so to speak, of, oh, you're doing better than you were last year. Really, coach? I don't know if I am. Yeah, I don't know if you are either, but I'm going to tell you that you are. In track, cross country, last year I ran 4:59. This year I'm running 4:23. Nobody can deny I've improved. And that's just an objective reality that